Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
I feel like it's not very often that the hiring of a quarterbacks coach steals the headlines in the NFL. But that's kind of what happened yesterday. KOC and Kwesi both spoke at their respective press conferences at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. And then funny and strategically, after they got done speaking, the Vikings put a release out later in the afternoon saying, hey, Josh McCown, new quarterbacks coach. Mm-hmm. And so we will dive into all of it. But Judd, tell the audience about our new friends, Fletcher Lake.
That is exactly right. Yes. Welcome aboard, Fletcher Lake Lodge. Welcome aboard. Now, here's what we're talking about here.
Oh, look at the B-roll here.
Oh, I was going to say.
Did you take this B-roll? Is this your helicopter?
I'm going to tell you about this B-roll, okay? Because it's a great question. This is a full-service fishing lodge located in Ontario, Canada, only accessible by flying in on a traditional Canadian bush plane. So this is from a Canadian bush plane, you guys.
Wow.
This is really, really cool. The remote setting ensures exceptional trophy fishing for guests. We're talking about trophy walleye. We're talking about northern muskies, smallmouth bass, all plentiful. Cabins accommodate groups from 2 to 12. And now you're saying to yourself, but am I roughing it, Sports Dad? Because you get daily maid service as well. A dock staff prepares your fully outfitted boat each morning. Jeannie and her staff, they're going to treat you like family. Here's all you have to do. Go to FletcherLake.com to learn more or book your reservation today. That's FletcherLake.com. You know what? Everyone needs an off season, including the Purple Daily family. If you're into fishing, no better way to rejuvenate for football season than Fletcher Lake Lodge.
All right. So, yeah, the Vikings sent out this little sneaky press release saying, hey, remember that guy that ended our season back in 2003? The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs. No.
You know what the best part is now? That is an incomplete pass.
Yeah, because
they pushed him out of bounds.
Rule.
Yeah, that's
Nate
right.
Nate Pool's pushed out of bounds.
You do know that they're going to, write this down. I wasn't even going to make this a write that down prediction, but I wasn't going to do it. Yeah. You know they're going to recreate Josh and Paul in some type of capacity with a handshake instead of no, there's going to be some type of thing that they'll have. They have to do it. Then they got a gold mine. There's your gold mine of an opportunity for the Vikings Entertainment Network. All right.
Declan producing multiple Vikings properties here.
Nice
I like it.
you.
So the headline is Chris O'Hara has been the quarterbacks coach for the last 2 years. He's young, by the way. He's 33 years old. He was Kirk's quarterbacks coach, despite being several years younger than Kirk the last 2 years. So he moves into a pass game specialist role. Mm-hmm. And then Josh McCown comes in here as the new quarterbacks coach. And before we get to the really interesting resume of Josh McCown, one thing in particular to keep an eye on. I would say with Josh McCown and Kevin O'Connell, two of the great jawlines in NFL circles. Just a couple.
You know what?
Those guys look like they do chewing exercises for 6 hours a day together.
Two guys that look like they should have been really good quarterbacks.
McCown spent 18. McCown is Mount Rushmore of great backup quarterbacks.
Right, but just bouncing around. But I'm saying those two jaw lines are like they are ideal for
quarterbackian jaw lines. Yeah,
they're busts in Canton. If you look at those jaw lines, those are busts in Canton. I'm not talking backup, baby. I'm talking Super Bowls.
If you were to just look at them and say, what position and what sport do these two dudes play? I think quarterback on the Family Feud board. First answer, quarterback in the NFL. Quarterback, they look like they're quarterbacks. They look like they play football. It's like Friday Night Lights vibes with both of those guys. They definitely look like they played some ball.
McCown has a bit of a rugby sort of chiseled look too. I think the hair, I don't know. I guess rugby would be one, or not hockey really. He's got kind of the hockey hair up top, but not as much the jawline. The teeth
impressive.
are nice. Yeah,
your fist would hurt if you hit that jawline. Forget trying to hit your fist is going to be hurt trying to knock that jawline.
Teams got fooled because they looked at both KOC and McCown and said starting quarterbacks for a long time.
They just look the part. Yeah. So Josh McCown knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs week 17, 2003. Very famous clip. 18 years as an NFL quarterback, 76 starts, one of the premier backup quarterbacks. He was a high-end backup that you could put in there for a half season to, right the ship. In 2015, Kevin O'Connell was his quarterbacks coach in Cleveland. And actually, so there's been all this buzz. Johnny Manziel went on a podcast and started ripping Brian Hoyer this week for basically being a bleep hole to him behind the scenes and not helping him. And Brian Hoyer then went on Good Morning Football and was like, well, yeah, I mean, he wasn't ready to play, and it's my hometown team. Like, I'm trying to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Sorry. Right. But the other guy in the mix for them that season was Josh McCown, who started a bunch of games for Cleveland, and Kevin O'Connell. So Johnny Manziel put out, there was another clip of him, or actually I think it was just him tweeting. And
Yes.
he's happy that those guys have reunited now from their Cleveland days, KOC and Josh McCown.
And on that same pod, Johnny went on a rant that I think it was towards the end of his rookie season, which obviously was kind of a disaster. But a DB's coach, I believe a defensive back or a defensive coach, pulled Johnny into a room and basically said, if you committed yourself better, you'd be a hell of a lot better football player. And Johnny talked about how that really just rocked his world. And he went back into the quarterback room and he looked white as a ghost. And Josh McCown asked him, what's wrong with you? You look like you're seeing ghosts. He said, well, this defensive coach just ripped me to shreds. And apparently McCown went up to that room and then ripped that coach for trying to rip down a rookie quarterback who was already really fragile. And you should not be doing that. That's not your job to do. So I think Johnny and Josh have a very close relationship.
And there was another clip from the same podcast. You guys, audience, just go watch the podcast. It's really interesting.
I watched it. It's good.
But what's better, just watching the podcast or listening to us try and explain what happened on the podcast?
Yeah. Josh McCown has definite coaching street cred. Is basically what this comes down to. Just like with O'Connell, they weren't great players, but they know exactly what. In fact, the best line was when Josh McCown told Manziel, "I can't make that throw, but you can." That's a great line.
Well, and he said, just tie a figurative string to my backpack and follow me around everywhere, and I'll show you how to be a quarterback in the NFL, right?
Well, let's go to Vegas then.
Yeah, how about you tie a string to your backpack and go to this drug dealer's house? So then, okay, Josh McCown retires from the NFL, and Frank Reich picks him up. Hey, here we are. We got the number 1 draft pick. We're going to get our quarterback of the future. And they identified, Frank Reich, Josh McCown to come in and be the one to develop whoever. They hired him in February before they knew who they were drafting, right? Before they made the trade. I think they hired him in the middle of February last year. Then they make the trade with the Bears. They wind up drafting Bryce Young. Everyone gets fired. It's a train wreck.
Yep.
And so McCown comes in. But the biggest thing on McCown's resume to keep an eye on, in 2019, he was an assistant coach at Myers Park High School in Charlotte, which I believe is where his kids played football. The quarterback there at the time was Drake May. Mm-hmm. Josh McCown was one of Drake May's high school football coaches in 2019. Mm-hmm. Super interesting.
And in 2018, Josh McCown was a backup quarterback for the New York Jets, who had just drafted Sam Darnold 3rd overall, who the Vikings also have been tied to as a potential bridge QB.
Dude, holy cow.
So here's where I think you could connect the dots, all right? I don't think this means Kirk is gone. After listening to what was said yesterday, the Kirk thing is definitely a work in progress. I think O'Connell sincerely wants him back badly, but it's a business decision, right? I think that this is a preemptive move in some ways for if Kirk is gone. Because, going up to get Drake May is probably a long shot if you're going to have to get into the top 2 or 3, unless Drake May absolutely bombs the combine, and more importantly, his pro day. He's not going to drop that drastically. But I think that this definitely puts a 44-year-old, 18-year veteran in the quarterback's room, where if Kirk is gone, there is a guy who can basically be, much like Mike Conley is for the Wolves, an adult in the room, which is incredibly important. I think this is a great move. I think this is a fantastic move. And anybody who got fired by the Carolina Panthers should consider themselves fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm not judging anybody. Frank Wright, Josh McCown. I ain't judging anybody off a year with that dumpster fire of an organization.
Yeah, I think that's the next big question here, and you just answered it. But do you hold it against him? Because I know there's a lot of people. Wait a second, the Bryce Young thing was a train wreck. Everyone got fired in Carolina. I think the owner is the problem there. David Tepper feels like now that what's his name, Daniel Snyder's out of the league with Washington. There's a fight now for the number one most incompetent NFL owner, and David Tepper has stepped up to the plate here the last couple of years to take that crown. So I don't know if I don't hold that against Josh McCown here. And he was in the mix, I think, as a finalist for the Houston Texans head coaching job before they hired DeMeco Ryans, right?
Yep.
He was very bizarre because it was so quick, but yes, he was.
So clearly he's respected around the NFL. You know, he's spent 18 years in locker rooms with a bunch of different quarterbacks. You know what? Let's call an audible here. We were going to do the KOC Kwesi recap stuff on our second episode behind Write That Down. Let's put we'll go hard count. We'll go write that down hard count on the second episode, boys.
All right.
And then let's play a couple clips here. I can fire these decks.
By the way, before you start, one more fly in the ointment of this hire. Josh McCown's agent is Mike McCartney, who is Kirk Cousins' agent. So this actually might be a backdoor trying to get Kirk to stay for all
It's wild.
we know at this point.
Wow.
Like there is so much going on here. You talk about moving parts. You talk about, like this and that. There are a lot of moving parts here.
I'm telling you, also, if you want to dig even deeper here, so Josh McCown, hold on a second. This is wild. Josh McCown was a backup for the 2006 Detroit Lions, and their starting quarterback was John Kitna, who I've heard is warming up to come back to the end. I mean, anything could happen.
Well,
in the next couple weeks.
Now, if you told me that he was still playing somewhere, I would not be surprised in the least. But how old is John Kitna?
How old do you think John Kitna is?
48.
He's 51. He's 51 years old.
Mm-hmm. He's still got a chance.
He's
a pocket passer.
Still in the league in
I'm a pocket passer.
Why can't you people see that? So that I really think that was just gauging the interest of Vikings Twitter. There was that as a headline. And then there was, let's start with the Kwesi thing, then we'll get to the KOC clips. And he said some interesting things on Florio's PFT Live. But Kwesi tried to say very little until the very end. He started getting pushed on Justin Jefferson. And he said two things, starting with this one. We've said it and we'll continue to say it. We think he's the best wide receiver in the league. He should be compensated as such. We think he's one of the best non-quarterbacks in the league, and we think he should be compensated as such. I think we all figured that, that's probably where the landing spot is, right? Highest paid wide receiver, highest paid non-quarterback. But for a general manager that, in theory, is trying to suppress the cost of players to build a roster, right? Like, it's interesting that he said all of this out loud vehemently at a podium at the NFL Combine. What did you make of that part of it before we get to the trade stuff?
Well, first of all, this is as frontal as we have seen Kwesi. And these are off of talking points too. Like he didn't slip up. These were talking points that I'm sure were discussed with PR.
Yeah.
That were discussed with probably guys like O'Connell and Brzezinski.
You don't think he went rogue and just said, okay,
I don't
screw
think
it,
no.
I'm going to say it?
No, because there's such a large volume. I've got them written down here. There's such a large volume of things that a GM, especially at the Combine in front of, everyone.
Yeah.
Like you slip up when you're talking to a reporter individually, right? You're sitting in a room.
USA Today.
You sort of forget about the recorder on. And
you're
you might
kicking
slip
back.
up.
Yeah.
This wasn't a slip up. This was intentional. Kwesi being what he vows to be, which is intentional. But the quote that you just read, which was a long quote, but does include that to me, basically says Justin Jefferson's getting the bag. Justin Jefferson's going to get what he wants. Now, we can certainly get to what's going on here about why it's not done yet and when it might get done. But this to me, like with Kirk, if you go back on the Kirk quotes, especially from Kwesi, they're very much a business. There's like, we got to hit both sides, got to do this, got to do that. I think he wants him back, but it's a business. This is a direct message of, we are going to keep him, and we're going to keep him at, essentially, he can call the price.
Yeah, you're right about the tone from Kwesi, especially when asked about Cousins, was, we like him. We think we can win a championship with Kirk Cousins, but Kirk has something that he's looking for. We've got a way that we're trying to go about this, and we do need to find a way to meet in the middle. And it's going to be interesting if another team presents a goalpost that's just too far for the Vikings to reach. Is Kirk even willing to meet the Vikings in the middle, or would he say, I don't know, here's the new bar, guys. It's over here. It's the Falcons or it's the Raiders.
Right.
But if Kwesi is telling the truth here, which is, hey, we think Justin Jefferson should be compensated as the best wide receiver and compensated as one of the best non-quarterbacks in the league, what's the hang-up? Is the hang-up the one of the best non-quarterbacks part? That JJ and his camp are saying, no, he is the best non-quarterback and should be compensated as such. And the Vikings are like, well, you're one of the best non-quarterbacks, and so it's actually down a notch. What's the hang-up?
Or is it guarantees, which Florio put out there? But here's the most important, in my opinion, on the hang-up. Here's the most important Kwesi quote, okay? And it's the one where he sort of tips his hand. So he vehemently said, I will not, we have agreed, the Jefferson camp, we've agreed we're not going to discuss what's out there. So we're not going to address the trade things. We think those are ridiculous, but we're not going to address them. But then he tipped his hand a little bit with this quote. Kwesi said, they have their reasons for waiting. We have our reasons for wanting to do it sooner. Ultimately, we've got to come together and figure out a way to meet in the middle. What that tells me is, first of all, the waiting is on Jefferson's part, not necessarily the Vikings' part. Because the Kwesi's saying, we want this done.
Here's the bag. It's right here. Do you want the bag?
Right. Okay. So, and this is spitballing totally, all right? So I'm not saying I haven't heard anything about this. I'm just trying to, because he's sending a message there. Like, he's sending up a message. Kwesi's trying to tell us something, but he can't really tell us what he wants to tell us. Mm-hmm. So how about this one?
Blink twice if he wants Kirk
back.
No,
seriously. It's like a hostage situation. The Vikings held hostage by Justin Jefferson, month 10. I wonder if it has to do with, number one, CeeDee Lamb, who was drafted in 2020, before Jefferson went, is eligible for a contract too. And he basically has said, I want to break the bank. Not as much as Jefferson, but he's definitely said it.
They're both just holding pens, hovering over a contract.
And here's the other one. Now, this makes a little bit less sense, but the competitive nature might actually play a role here. Guess who just became or is eligible this offseason for a contract extension for the first time? Jamar Chase.
All three of them holding pens, staring at a contract.
And now Jamar Chase, technically, I guess in Jefferson's world, should have to wait a year. But I wonder if this comes down to a desire from the Jefferson camp not to sign a contract, and in 2 weeks then have it exceeded. Like,
but it's
something's weird here.
It's only going to exceed it by, let's say the total contract is $170 million. Okay,
I don't disagree with you.
CeeDee Lamb signed for $170. You all signed for $171. If that's the hang up, that's so stupid.
I agree, but
it's completely ego and vanity driven.
But what is Kwesi trying to tell us here? They have their reasons for waiting. We have ours for wanting to do it sooner.
Do you think he's saying? Do you think part of it is, in terms of like reasons why Justin Jefferson wouldn't? If the Vikings general manager is saying, "Hey, we want to make him one of the highest paid players in the NFL," right? Like we have no issue with his value. That is not the argument. So the list of reasons why JJ would want to wait or delay this are, number one, he wants more money than the Vikings are offering, but it seems like the Vikings they're saying the right things, right?
I was going to say we're
going to make you really rich, guy. So
that's what they're saying. Yes.
Number two, it could be what you're saying, which is, well, let's make sure that we have another receiver set the bar so that we can for sure exceed that bar. But could number three be Justin Jefferson? Kirko Chains is now Kirko Grills. He went to a dentist and got the gold grills on the teeth this week, put it on Instagram, and Justin Jefferson commenting back, hey, he's my guy. That's my quarterback, is what he commented.
Yeah.
What percentage of the pie chart of waiting game is wanting to see what happens with Kirk and the quarterback situation? Which, by the way, it might not fully play out until the draft in 2 months from now.
Here's why I don't buy that, okay? So Kwesi said before, and Dukes has reported this for months now, but I don't think the Vikings confirmed it, or Kwesi certainly didn't, until yesterday. Kwesi said right before the Tampa Bay regular season opener last year, quote, "We got unbelievably close." Which, by the way, for an executive to say that is big. Like, yes, okay, we all thought that. But he confirmed it right there. So if they were that close, do you really think it was like September 8th, Jefferson in his right hand is the pen, and he's going down to sign the contract. He's like, okay, this is going to be it. I'm getting the bag. And as just as pen is about to hit paper, he says, what about Kirk? And the Vikings are like, well, we can't do Kirk yet. And he says, well, then I'm not going to sign, and I'm actually going to play with no guarantee past year 5. So that's why I don't believe that.
Yeah. I think it's lower on the priority list, too. So continuing with Kwesi's comments on Jefferson, he was asked point blank, have you thought about trading him? Have you entertained the idea of trading him? Because you can say all you want about how close you guys got, how much you want to make him one of the richest players in professional sports. There's no pen on paper yet. Would you trade him? And Kwesi said, that's not something that has ever crossed my mind. I would say this about that comment. He's either lying, and I get it. That's fine. You're not going to get up there. Remember Rick Spielman, we have no intention of trading Stephon Diggs, Percy Harvin, all the different players, he said.
Yep.
So I do not expect Kwesi, when he's asked a point-blank question like that, he has to lie. So I think he's lying, because there's no way as an NFL GM you don't think at some point as this thing drags on, man, I wonder, we definitely don't want to trade him, but what if we could get that 3rd overall pick? What if we get – so I don't think he's telling the truth here. The other thing is, if it actually hasn't crossed his mind, wouldn't that be negligence and incompetence as a general manager? And I think he's lying, so I think it's bin number 1 or door number 1. But I want the general manager of the team that I follow, and the Vikings fans, don't you want your general manager to explore all feasible options to make your team better? So I don't know. That was an interesting comment. I think he's lying, but if he's not lying and it hasn't crossed his mind, well, I need my general manager here to be turning over every stone and looking at every possibility.
So Harvin and Diggs were a little bit different because they were actively disgruntled. Like, there was problems there. Yeah. So Rick was lying because he needed the lie to trade him, because you can't be like, I'm trying to shop these guys and no one will take them now. I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with the in a vacuum, the one quote. But in going through these quotes, Kwesi is in so deep with these quotes as a collective that it's interesting. Like, when you come out and say things like, I mean, this is damn near unprecedented, I think, by saying someone should be compensated as such. Like, he's basically saying, we will give you everything that you want. Just please sign. So, I think that not even thinking about trading him would be a major problem. But I also feel like Kwesi's put himself in the jackpot here. I mean, I also feel like he's buried himself. Like, this didn't feel, unless he's pulling the greatest end around of all time, this didn't feel strategic in a sense of trying to make a move.
It felt more honest. Yeah.
It felt like he was, because, and go back and look at his quotes, or go back and listen, I should say, to his quotes on Kirk. They're very down the middle. They're very calculated. They are what you expect from a GM.
Well, he didn't say let's use the same Jefferson quote, but put Kirk Cousins in the quote. All right. I'm gonna read you this same quote, but replace wide receiver and Jefferson with Cousins.
Okay.
We've said it and we'll continue to say it. We think he's the best quarterback in the league, and he should be compensated as such. We think he's one of the best players in the league, and we think he should be compensated as such. He has come nowhere near saying anything like that about Kirk, obviously.
Right.
He obviously feels one way about Jefferson. And he likes Kirk, but he doesn't put Kirk anywhere near like top of the food chain the way that he has spoken about him the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's also clear too that KOC wants Kirk Cousins back, as Judd said off the top. Like that's clear. Kevin O'Connell wants Kirk Cousins back. That's priority number one. Now, could he shift his priorities after they explore the market? Kirk Cousins says bye-bye, and I think KOC, as a forward-thinking individual, can move on from that and realize, okay, my next test is obviously drafting a quarterback and figuring out where I want to go there. Where Kwesi has been a lot more careful with what he's saying, because Kwesi could have went up there and said the exact same things that Kevin O'Connell did. He did not, and that was intentional. That was not an accident. He did that on purpose because he knows that they've reached a point where they're not going to pay Kirk the exact bag that Kirk Cousins and their camp want.
Well, let's play a couple clips here. I'll fire these decks here. So KOC did his press conference, and then he went on PFT Live with noted Vikings enthusiast Mike Florio, and Florio grilled him. I mean, Florio was asking super pointed questions.
Props to Florio.
So we're going to play two clips. They're both like a minute long here from PFT Live. And it's Florio pushing at KOC to get answers here.
But with him betting on himself, I mean, there's a chance he's going to find a jackpot somewhere else.
Yeah, I think anytime free agency is involved, we can have plans, and Kirk knows how I personally feel about him. He knows how our organization feels about him. I believe Kirk wants to be a Minnesota Viking. I do believe that. I've had some great dialogue with him pretty much weekly throughout the offseason, leading into kind of as we step foot in Indy for the Combine. But there's a process, Mike, that's got to play out. And I think if for us to, be able to get to the place where we can come to an agreement and have Kirk Cousins as our quarterback moving forward, which is what, I would love to see happen, we're going to have to find that space, that common ground. But ultimately, knowing both parties want the same outcome, I do believe, I feel strongly we're going to be able to get something done.
Okay, I'll fire this next one here too, but it's super interesting that KOC wants Kirk back. KOC feels like Kirk wants to come back, but there's this ambiguous elephant in the room that Kwesi is kind of in charge of, right? I want to come back, but it's got to be on a certain price point or a certain number of guaranteed years, whatever it is. So, okay, here's Florio pushing KOC 2.0.
I may be reading between the lines here, and I may be completely off base. It happens all the time. I almost feel like he needs to, and you need him to, see what else might be out there before he can make his decision to stick around.
I don't know. Needs probably the wrong word. I just think it's the opportunity. This isn't his first time betting on himself and, entering free agency, and I think he's earned that right. And like I said, in this day and age, and a lot of the questions we're asking guys at this very combine, when we get them in informal interviews, revolve around handling adversity. Having the courage to bet on yourself in a lot of ways is something you're just not seeing that much anymore. Guys being willing to overcome adverse situations, fight like crazy to still be successful where their feet are planted. I do believe that Kirk knows how we feel about him, and I think at this point he's earned the right for what's going to transpire over these next few days and weeks. But my confidence is still strong that we're going to have an opportunity for Kirk to be a Minnesota.
So 100% unequivocally, you want him back.
I do want him back.
So that to me was the most important thing O'Connell said throughout the course of the day about Kirk, and here's why. He clearly knows, he's been told that Kirk has every intention of exploring the market, which again he should. Not a criticism. Yeah. But he knows that Kirk, and now the Vikings would be stuck with that $28.5 million dead cap hit if he's brought back. Like, you can hear it. I think O'Connell wants him back, and I think O'Connell is hoping that they're, I guess, ideally for the Vikings perspective, that there could be a 11th hour resolution of some sort to get this done, and then they can defer again and put in, dead faux cap years and all of that stuff. But that being said, I thought that quote reflected 100%. I've been told that this guy has come this far and is going to explore the market, which of course opens up the door for Kwesi to say, sorry, Kevin, it's too much. We can't bring him back and pay this and pay that. And pay Jefferson, because the difference is this. From listening to Kwesi especially, I feel like the Vikings are at least in charge of the Cousins negotiations. Like, they've got a price point. They might change it. Both sides might change it. But I feel like the Vikings are acting very rationally here, like very business-like, button-up, suit, tie-like. I'll say this. It feels like Justin Jefferson is 100% in charge of the negotiations with the Vikings.
What is on the Kirk front? Based on everything that we've now taken in the last 2 months since the season ended, what do you think the % chance is that he's back with the Vikings?
Oh, boy. After listening to everybody talk, the head coach, I think, really wants him back badly. The GM, I think, is reflecting the head coach a bit, but being far more. I think it's about 25 to 30%, because here's my thing. The ball's in Kirk's court.
It is.
It's clearly in Kirk's
court.
And
it's in Kirk's and Kwesi's court, really.
Sure.
Because if the Vikings let him explore, maybe they push the void. Maybe they can push the void date back
anymore now. I think that time has passed.
They can't.
Okay. So they can't move that.
So they're stuck.
So they need to find out. Kwesi needs to find out. Okay, tamper away this week in Indianapolis, because we need to know before you can officially talk to teams.
He's got a hall pass for the weekend in Indy.
But isn't there another? I should have done some digging on this before we clicked record today. But isn't there another stipulation that he can't sign for more than $40 million a year?
Yes.
Until after the void date with the Vikings. So if his market value goes over $40 million,
he's gone.
They're kind of screwed, aren't they?
Unless he's willing to take what they offer. Like, I think that's what O'Connell is bending over backwards to say, we love you. O'Connell actually said, and I don't know if he's discussed this before, but on PFT Live, he actually talked about the fact that when he was an assistant in Washington with Kirk as the quarterback for, I think, a season or two, that the families became friends. So, like, they're tight with Kirk, with Julie, with the kids. The Cousinses are tight with the O'Connells. So, like, they're pals, they're buddies. But yes, I think the ball's in Kirk's court. Are you going to
say like 25%? You said 25.
Yeah, because you're right, dude. If the prediction that Barnwell had, if somebody comes with 50 million, Vikings can't match that, and is Kirk really going to say no?
Yeah.
There's 2 teams he'll take a discount for: the Vikings, and if Kyle Shanahan calls and says, "I want you to be my quarterback," those are the only 2 teams he's going to take a discount for.
My quarterback.
And the San Francisco part, not just because it's Kyle Shanahan and they've been in 4 NFC title games and 2 Super Bowls, but because he would have a legit like he can get $51 million from the Steelers or Falcons, let's say, and you're kind of in the same boat as the Vikings. You're log jammed. You don't have a clear path to be a contender. If Kyle has called him up and the tampering has started, or the tampering once it begins, it says, "I want you to be my quarterback." And are you okay with making only $20 to $25 million? And Kirk realizes, you know what? It's my best chance to win a Super Bowl. I am cool with the $20 to $25 million or whatever it would be. Those are the only 2 teams, Niners and Vikings, that he'd take a discount for.
I think he'd take a discount. I don't think he'd go that low. I don't think he would.
I don't think he's taking anything less than $35 million at this point.
I think 35 to 40 would be, well, and I mean, clearly if the Vikings can't exceed 40, we'll find out. Now, the Vikings are potentially, if they really want Kirk back, they are in a position to get a big break here, because it sounds like the Falcons and Bears are working on a Justin Fields trade.
That's interesting. Yeah, we should, at some point here, maybe we can do this tomorrow. There's a musical chairs game that does factor in. There's a supply and demand.
It could leave Kirk out a little bit.
Well, it definitely would. Yeah, it's if there's like 6 or 7 teams that are looking for a new starting quarterback, there's certainly more options than just Kirk Cousins, right? There's first round draft picks, there's Fields, there's Russell Wilson for $1.2 million. Dex, give me a percentage back to the Vikings. Everything you've consumed in the last 2 months.
30%. A little higher than 25 for me. 30%. Okay. I think he's comfortable.
I'm higher than you guys, I think, listening to Kevin O'Connell specifically. When the head coach, I don't think he's lying. I think Judd's right about those guys. They have a great connection. Kevin has elevated Kirk's play in his career. They clearly have a chemistry, and I don't think when he's being asked by Mike Florio point blank, do you want him back? And he says, yes, I want him back. I don't think that's posturing. I think he wants him back.
Yeah, he doesn't lie well.
So if the head coach is saying, Kwesi, dude, get him back. We can still draft a quarterback, but of course we would sit here and say, well, that doesn't make sense to put all that cap money in and not take advantage of it. But like, if the head coach wants Kirk back, I think it's at least 50%.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's very 50-50 right now. So I'll be the highest percentage of the three of us.
The interesting thing then, though, is what is your plan? So, like, if Kirk comes back, are you still going to try to draft a guy in the first round?
Wild, man.
And if you sign Kirk for, because I'm going to assume that Kirk is not going to take a one-year contract. If you sign Kirk for 2 or 3 years, as we discussed, I think it was on yesterday's show, it doesn't really make sense to draft a quarterback high because you're back all in. And so, like, if you're going to draft a quarterback and you want Jefferson to sign, how do you explain, hey, Justin, just be patient here, dude. We're going to, so like this introduces, if there are people with different beliefs who try to come together and be like, okay, we're going to keep Jefferson for sure. Now we're keeping Kirk. At that point in time, how do you marry that all together to be as successful as possible and build something?
Yep. These are all very open-ended questions.
And you know what these aren't? These aren't champagne problems. These are real problems. These are real issues, Kwesi.
These are real football problems, Kwesi.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got a 2.0 from Mel Kiper, so we got to do that here real quick.
Oh, yeah.
After we give you guys one more reminder here, you've helped us. Well, not us. I mean, we just put up a website, scorenorth.com/donate. We are looking to raise money for just the tragic happenings from a week and a half ago. 2 Burnsville police officers, Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Ruggie, and firefighter and paramedic Adam Finseth, tragically killed in the line of duty. And the Frontline Foundation has already organized $60,000 to those families. And so we're jumping in, and we have a page. It's a donation page for the Frontline Foundation looking to raise more money. scorenorth.com/donate. scorenorth.com/donate. You've already donated a few $1,000s, and so we appreciate that. If you have $5, $50, $500, whatever you feel comfortable with, scorenorth.com/donate.
I want a mock.
Okay, the godfather of mocks has spoken for the second time. It's Mel Kiper's 2.0 at ESPN.com, boys.
Huge.
Why doesn't he wait till after the combine? He came this far.
Do you think they're trying to?
You don't tell Mel how to mock.
I think he does a post combine.
I don't think we can tell the Godfather how to go about his bit. You don't tell the Coleone say, what is that Coleone doing trying to get business going on the day of the combine?
I bet you he doesn't want to, but the excitement about combine week, his bosses say you have to.
Little double dip.
And I bet he'll do one after the combine. But this think about how great this week is from a football perspective, right? And now we got a mock from Mel.
Let's go through it here. So I don't think he has trades yet. He holds off on the trades until later. So he's got Caleb Williams going to the Bears as of right now. He's got Jaden Daniels going to the Commanders, number 2. So the godfather of mock has Jaden Daniels above Drake May right now. And then he has Drake May going 3 to the Patriots. Excuse me. He has Marvin Harrison Jr., 4 to the Cardinals. And then this is a huge deviation, he says, from his original mock draft. He has offensive tackle J.C. Latham from Alabama going to the Chargers at 5. That's the highest that we've seen him go. At 6, Rome Odunze, wide receiver Washington, to the Giants. 7, the Titans take Joe Alt, offensive tackle Notre Dame. Falcons take Dallas Turner, edge rusher Alabama. Bears take wide receiver Malik Neighbors from LSU. Jets take Brock Bowers, the Georgia tight end. And win the 11th overall pick, the godfather of mock, Mel Kiper, selects on behalf of the Minnesota Vikings from Florida State defensive end Jared Verse.
I want a mock.
He almost went cornerback here. He had no mention of quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, by the way, goes the very next pick to the Broncos at 12.
So he thinks Kirk's back then.
Wouldn't you trade back at this point? If you're the Vikings and you think JJ McCarthy is within range here and you don't want him, wouldn't you trade out?
Dude, I don't know. Yes.
What we're doing with
and
it.
I still think McCarthy might go top 10. When
Yeah,
it's all said and done,
he's already
he's going
knocking
up
on the
very
door
quickly.
here.
Yes. So
there you go.
interesting.
All right, we do have a second episode. It's a Write That Down Wednesday. We've got a hard count for you, so tons of Purple Daily stuff here this NFL Combine week. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.